Some 3,000 people died in the attacks on the World Trade Center, far fewer than originally estimated, nonetheless a devastating tally. In the days after September 11th, family and friends of the victims kept up hope that their loved ones would be rescued from the rubble.
His name is Moise. He was dressed as a chef when everything happened.
Discovered in a hospital.
But if anybody sees him or knows anything, his name is Andrew Stern.
Perhaps found wandering the streets with amnesia.
Please, if you could give me help with my sister. She's been missing since 9 in the morning yesterday.
My brother, Tom Knox.
Grief-stricken, they posted their flyers throughout the city, creating galleries of missing persons, nearly everywhere you looked. As hope dimmed, the flyers became memorials of sorts, and the inspiration for a remarkable series in the New York Times. For nearly a week, the paper had been struggling to come up with a way to write about the victims who were presumed, but not yet declared, to be dead.
On Friday, after the attack, we just decided to start using the posters that people had put up around the city.
Jonathan Landman is the paper's metropolitan editor. Christina Kay, an assistant editor on the Metro desk.
We began the conversation of, okay, let's try to find one aspect of the person's life, whether it was about a passion or their personality, this one thing that you could really flesh out the person.
And so began the Portraits of Grief. The portraits offer glimpses of lives curtailed, of people who, as the series' introduction put it, set off for work on a dazzling September morning, and something unimaginably horrible happened. The pieces have become obsessive reading for millions of Americans, myself included. More than 100 Times reporters have worked on the series. Janie Scott, David Chen, and Anthony De Palma have, among them, written 100 portraits.
Mr. Fenney, 28, who was at a conference at Windows on the World on September 11th, tutored an illiterate adult, established a program for poor children, worked for campus security, was a dorm counselor, a representative on the university's board of trustees, and worked for Habitat for Humanity. Even after he moved to New York, he kept up the pace of his activities. He was a rock climber, a scuba diver, a kayaker, and an avid inline skater. He loved gliding through Central Park whenever
Robert
he got a
Sliwak,
chance.
who was a bond broker at Cantor Fitzgerald, lives on in his 3 children. That's what his wife says to help them, and her, get through these days. Last Friday was their father's birthday. He would have been 43. And they went out for pizza to celebrate. The kids all had soda, a special treat, and they raised their glasses and toasted him.
Vivian Castleduke lived to make her family's eyes light up. Each December, she would bake gingerbread for a giant candy land where the ground was coated with thick piles of shredded coconut snow, and the houses were studded with lollipops and licorice. She would make it the first 2 days in December and let everybody look at it all month long, and on Christmas morning, she'd let everyone ransack it, said her daughter.
It was really by the seat of our pants in the beginning, and I think that the style of them evolved since then.
What's evolved, just seems to me as one reader, what's evolved is a kind of a way of looking at an individual through the things that make him or her lovable to their... does that?
It rings true, I think, because when we talk to the families, invariably they will not sort of summarize the person's resume and all the other things that we tend to talk about in sort of this, type A city.
But it
very
also
minor,
makes the people live. I mean, it produces the kind of details that appear in a novel.
Sure. No, what you try to do is to show a part of that person's life rather than tell about it, and to do it in an almost a familiar way, not the formal style of the New York Times, which would be in an obituary, and it allows people to connect, people who are desperate to connect to all that's happened in some way or another.
Yeah, people not related to...
No, not at all.
Yeah, but people also say that they wish they had known this person.
Sure.
After reading this particular profile. I find myself sort of smiling, actually, at some of the anecdotes that the families tell me.
On his birthday, insurance executive Herman Broghammer allowed himself to be dressed in alpine shorts and lederhosen as 15 couples roasted him to the strains of The Sound of Music. Ralph Licciardi could stuff his earlobe into his ear and then wiggle the ear until the earlobe fell out. Bill Wren, the World Trade Center's director of fire safety, liked to go to art museums and watch Sister Wendy's art lectures on TV. Diane Lepari, a commodities trader, was so cheerful, friends teased that when she woke in the morning, birds chirped around her.
Everybody I know has been terribly moved by these mini obits as they've appeared. Some people I know start their day with them, and some can't stand it because it's so emotional that they end their day with them. Johnny, how do you feel writing them?
When I first started, I approached them with some trepidation. You're bumbling into some stranger's life at an incredibly difficult time. You're a stranger over the phone. You're calling completely out of the blue and asking them to talk in detail, in great detail, and hopefully with some emotion and feeling and recollection of events and humorous moments and idiosyncrasies, to talk in detail about a person who's just died. So every time I picked up the phone, there was a certain hesitation. And yet, once you got people on the phone, almost invariably, they rose to the task and began to talk in the most wonderful ways and described these people with such depth and feeling that there was something very invigorating about it.
On the other hand, just speaking for myself, it's difficult to do it for an extended period of time because each profile is so draining and...
It's draining of you.
Yes, it's very draining.
The thing about this is that there's no doubt, in my mind anyway, that this is important work. And so while it's draining, it does also make it easy in the sense that you know the worth of it.
Oddly enough, the easiest portraits to write, say these three journalists, are often the most difficult ones to report. For David Chen, it was the one about investment banker Chris Murphy, a long-lost college friend. Janie Scott's was the portrait of firefighter Thomas Hannafin. His brother, Kevin, found his body in the wreckage.
So he said, I took the helmet and I walked down this long line of rescue workers and followed by my brother's body in the basket. And he said, and I was a member of my brother's company on that day, and it was the proudest moment of my life. That was just extremely hard story to hear told.
Then there was the story of insurance executive Michael Egan and his sister Christine, who was visiting that morning from Canada. They called Michael's wife after the planes hit the towers.
And he's saying, we're okay, but I'm not sure what's going to happen. And as they were talking, she's in New Jersey watching the television, and she watches the building fall while she's on the phone with him. I lost my breath. I didn't know. I had to say, look, she was sobbing, and I said, I'm sorry. At this moment, I don't know what to say, but then I'm sorry.
Nearly 1,600 portraits have been written. From A for investment banker Gordy Amoth, who on Monday, September 10th, in his hometown, Minneapolis, completed his biggest merger deal ever. To Z for Abe Zelmanowitz, who stayed with his paraplegic colleague at Empire Blue Cross Blue Shield until the towers collapsed.
Is your aim, if you can, still to get everybody?
Yes, but realistically, we all know that's not going to happen. We've been 20%, 25%, something like that, are just saying no to us. A certain number we just can't find. So we will continue to do it as long as we still have people to do, but we won't be able, at some point, not too far from now, to be able to do it every day.
If it's shown us one thing, it's that nobody's life was ordinary, that everybody is unique in their own way and interesting.
Howard Kestenbaum was so worried about the homeless, he spent nights in shelters to see what it was like. Katie McCloskey moved to Manhattan in June and wrote in her diary that she had found an awesome job in an awesome place in an awesome city. Mark McGinley's memorial service was planned for 500 relatives and friends. 1,500 people came.
Moises Rivas had dreams, big ones. He imbibed life in big gulps, and he went after what he wanted. Of course, he got the girl, and he and Elizabeth married and had 2 children, Moises Jr., 4, and Moesha, 2. A 29-year-old immigrant from Ecuador, he wanted to be the next Emeril, so he took a job as chef at Windows on the World. He also wanted to be the next Ricky Martin, so he wrote songs and became lead singer for an up-and-coming band that recorded a CD. And boy, he knew how to dance, his wife said. He had just some kind of moves. I just wish he could come back. I wish he was with me right now. That's the only thing I wish.
Robert Fazio Jr.,
Ronald Carl Fazio.
William Feehan,
Francis Jude Feely.
Garth Erin Feeney,
Sean B. Fagan.
Lee S. Feeling,
Peter Adam Feidelberg.
Alan D. Feinberg,
Rose Marie Feliciano.
Edward Thomas Fergus Jr.,
George Ferguson.
Henry Fernandez,
Judy Hazel Fernandez.
Julio